Hey guys, how's it going? So some of you guys have been asking me, did I overhype the Buchardt S400 Mark II in my original review because I was calling it like basically a giant killer. I'm not gonna save it, that's what I said. And I truly felt that way. I love the speakers, my friends love the speakers. My friend Tujin was like, oh my god, the depth. And we even, I think, compared to Sonos Fabric Elac 3 and some of the Wilson audio speakers I've heard in the past. So of course, people are like asking me, is it overhyped now that some other people have their opinions on the speakers? Now, my opinion hasn't really changed, but I decided to give it a second listen and do some testing to see if it was indeed overhyped or if there's other cheaper alternatives that can compete. Fair enough? So here I have the Buchardt S400 Mark II. And I have it in this nice rosewood finish. And for comparison, we have the Elac Unifi reference. And why did I choose this speaker? Well, because most of you are curious as to the differences between the Elac Unifi reference and the Buchardt, because they're quite similar in sound signature, right? And also, obviously, I reviewed the Elac Unifi reference as well. I'll link it in the description below for you to check out both of the full reviews of the Buchardt and the Elac. I give it a good review on the Elac as well. But is it at the level of the Buchardt? I don't think so. But we'll find out in a blind A/B. Let's see if my big mouth is true when I put my blindfold on and have to actually choose A or B, Buchardt or Elac. And I'm not gonna be the only one doing it. We're gonna have Sean Nova, my cameraman, behind me.
Hey guys.
That's recording?
Yeah. I look like a samurai.
Yeah, I know. You're about to run a marathon or something. So, yeah, just put it on. He's going to also do it, and we're gonna find and compare both of our findings and what we heard different in the Elac versus the Buchardt. And we don't know the result. So if the Elac comes on top, then you have a speaker that sounds better than the Buchardt for half the price. And I'll admit that I overhyped it and I'm a sellout. No. In fact, this video and the original Buchardt video has not been sponsored by Buchardt. I have no, financial gain from doing this video. Elac didn't pay me, Buchardt didn't pay me, nobody paid me, but they should. But again, to make sense of this, what gear are we using? Okay, we're not using our Luxman. We in fact have the Dynafrips Thallo, amplifier. And let me make it very clear. The reason I'm using this is because it's a good match with both the Buchardt and the Elacs. They sound great. I in fact referenced this specific amplifier for both the Elac and the Buchardt in my original reviews. If you go back and check, you'll find it. Now, let's talk about placement before we talk about the other components. So placement wise, we have about 1 foot away from the wall. Okay? Yes, I have diffusers, I like good sound, but 1 foot is where I am at in my room. You may think, wow, that's really close. Well, this is real life situations, right? Like people can't have it 3 foot out into the room like, I can or some dedicated rooms can. Now these speakers particularly like to have it close to the wall. It reinforces the bass, and I'm not talking about room gain specifically, but because of the overall design of the speaker, it's meant to be not in near field situations. So this likes to be close to the wall. Now, the Elac is not a speaker that is particularly good at being close to the wall. However, 1 foot away was the best compromise between the Buchardt and the Elac. Okay, the Buchardt and Elacs do extremely well in this position exactly, and we did hear it back and forth already to see how we like it unblinded, right, Sean?
That's right.
And did you hear any problems like boominess, room gain problems?
No.
Muddiness.
Nothing like that, no.
There you go. So it's a good spot, and especially because of the diffusers, it helps out. I can't say that 1 foot will work in your room, but it works in mine. That's what I can tell you from my experience only. Okay, so moving on over here. The preamplifier I'm using is the Dynafrips Hades. Is Dynafrips sponsoring my video? No, but they should. Yeah. The Dynafrips Hades and Othello, I'll link it in the description. great component. I've been using it with speakers in this price range. It makes sense to use it with prices, in this category. So that's why we're using it, real life situations. As for the DAC, we're using the internal DAC on the Inuit Zen Mini Mark III streamer. Again, all within that price range of what a normal person would use in this kind of system. So nothing crazy going on here, just some things. Oh, and cable, lastly. Can't forget about the cable, man. Like, the cables, we're using a $10,000 worth. No, I'm just joking. We're using plain old blue jean cables, good for the money. Ugly, as Sean put it. I don't think it's ugly, I think it's pretty minimalistic, but perspective.
It looks like Ethernet cables.
Opinions, just opinions. Anyways, so we'll give our opinions in a blind A/B, and then we'll talk smack after, because we want to talk smack after we find our findings instead of talking before and then being proved wrong, right? So in my case, I've already said stuff about both speakers. Sean didn't, so he has an advantage there. But anyways, let's go and see if I get embarrassed, or if I don't, let's go for it.
What are you doing there, Jay?
This is called dB meter. So we're measuring 1 kilohertz and making sure the volume is matched between the Elacs and the Buchardt, so that both are at the same level when we play them, because we don't want one to be louder and one to be less loud, because that's not fair. It's about fairness.
Justice.
The interesting thing is this. The Elac Unifi reference was chosen not because it's a bad speaker, but because it's a great speaker. In fact, not too long ago, I reviewed the speaker and I gave it a very good high rating. But I don't think it's at the level of the Buchardt S400 Mark II. Now, I could say all things, but what better way than to do a blind A/B testing? Now, don't get me wrong, it was a lot of work and we tried our best. We have the full length video of us doing blind A/B testing in the unlisted video in the description below. If you're interested in checking out and seeing if you were actually blind, if we were doing things right, then you can check that link. But I warn you, it's about hour plus long, because it was the entire process. Now, how we did it was that we chose 10 tracks that we know very well, and then we went back and forth blind, testing each other on which one we preferred. Now, this is very important. We chose what we preferred. Meaning we were not guessing which speaker was Buchardt and which speaker was Elac, but more so choosing what we liked in that particular track. So the result, well, I chose the Buchardt 9 times. And truthfully told, in my opinion, it is that much of a better speaker. Now, Sean Nova, he chose the Buchardt 8 times out of 10. So again, that shows that he has a preference for Buchardt. So I'm gonna bring him over here. I'm gonna tell you my differences, what I heard, and then he's gonna give his. Come on over, Sean.
Sounds good.
It's good. Oh, he hit the mic.
Of course. Hey guys.
Okay, so what did you hear?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, you could hear that the Buchardt had better imaging and separation. If it was in the vocals and the instruments, and the Buchardt also had way better like sub bass, and in the low end there was a bit bigger presence and impact. The Buchardt, the Elac, it wasn't too different. Like, it wasn't a big dip in quality. Some of the songs sounded really good on it, but you could tell right away that there was something missing in the low end. And
like, it didn't extend as low.
And the impact wasn't there. Like, your house was shaking on some of the songs.
Yeah.
But on the Buchardt, not on the Elac. So yeah, it's if you really listen closely, you could hear a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, I reviewed both speakers, right? And I have to say, on certain tracks that I played, the difference was pretty substantial. Now, I'll give you an example. This track by James Blake, right? Limit to Your Love.
Right.
Now, when I play this track, there's two distinctive notes in the bass region, right? There's one that's a little bit higher in the bass region, and then there's one that goes even lower into the sub-bass region. And the Buchardt S400 MKII just did that perfectly and really delivers what it promises of a floor standard experience in a bookshelf. Deep bass, really low extension. Not only that, the vocals were more refined. It was not as edgy. You know, there was refinement, it was smoother. In fact, I think on my original S400 video, I was like saying smooth too much, and people were like, take a shot every time Jay says smooth. And I really mean it. It's smooth on the top end. The extension is there, but it's not going to shout at you. So in that way, if you like speakers that are a little bit more bright, like Vocals, Magicals, or you know, even Wilson Audio to some extent is a little bit more extended. So if you like a little bit more exaggerated high frequency, then you may not like the Buchardt. You may find it a little bit too flat sounding. But if you listen to it and own it for long periods of time, you would notice there's nothing missing in the information. It's just smooth. So that's what I find with the Buchardt S400 MKII, is that not only is it better than the Elacs from top to bottom, quite literally, it's just smoother in the mid-range. And one of the tracks that I played was this track that I'll put on the screen right now. And the tone, like when the guitar goes down, 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 right? You know what I'm talking about?
For sure.
Like the tone, immediately when that kicks in, the tone on the Buchardt is just so much more realistic and impactful than the Elacs. Now, does that mean the Elacs are bad speakers? No. No, I genuinely enjoy the Elacs as well, but like you said, the extension isn't quite there. The refinement isn't quite there. And the sound staging is actually quite drastic compared to the Buchardt to the Elac, especially if you've been listening to back and forth quite a while, you know. Imaging is more pinpoint. So overall, everything is improved on the Buchardt S400 MKII. Now, one track that I want to, I want you guys to pay attention to is the Sarah K track, Waterfall. Now this track, I prefer the Elac. But there, I remember saying in the lengthy video that we unlisted, I said, man, I know that the other one technically performed better, but I still chose the Elac because the Elac on that track for some reason sounded more masculine, like way more like girth, like more body to the sound. And yes, it was more grainy, more gritty, but it's just more musically enjoyed. I enjoyed it more musically. And it's that experience that, you know, I gave him an example, right? Because we do cameras, right? So it's like shooting 4K, sharp 4K image out of a Sony, and you're like, yeah, that looks so much better. That's so sharp. But then you look at the, edited photo, and it's just like they added a little bit of cinema grain to it, and you're like, yeah, I'm liking that. Technically, this is a sharper image, but honestly, I would choose this. That was that one track. The rest, I prefer the Buchardt. The tone, and it's rightfully so. It's like almost double the price, or more than double the price, right? So again, the question people ask often, Sean, is it worth twice the price, right? And I'm not gonna answer that until you answer it first. What do you think?
I feel like it's tough to say. Twice the price it's a lot of money at the end of the day for a difference that's very, very small, to some people. But I feel like the higher end the system is, if you have a better DAC, better amp, you'll notice it more. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if you're at that price point and you've already got a high-end system, then you would opt for the higher end speaker.
In your opinion, right? Like in your personal opinion, do you think it's 2 times better?
That's tough. No, I wouldn't say 2 times better, but I say it's definitely better in almost all aspects, but twice the prices. It's tough to justify. Okay.
Well, for me, it's a little bit of a different story. So I've heard through many ranges of prices in many different, speakers. And for me, when it comes to this type of difference, I mean, you just basically said improves in all aspects. Very hard. Very hard. Even if it's double the price, improving in all aspects is, Usually people go for like, better imaging, better sound staging, better tone, or one or two or even three, hitting three improvements in the system is extremely valuable. So when people say, is it 2 times better? What I look for is it that much better? Is it an actual upgrade? And my answer is yes, it's a definite upgrade. There's no questions. It improves in all aspects: imaging, sound staging, tone, bass, treble, smoothness, extension, refinement. So in my opinion, from my perspective, I think it is 2 times better, if not more, right? And again, that's not saying that the Elacs are bad. The Elacs are great speakers. And it has that similar tone, similar balance. That's why it's such a great comparison, because these are not night and day different type of sound. They're similar categories of speakers, similar sound signature that is taken to the next level, right? So that's what is impressive. So again, if you have the Elacs, then I guarantee you will like the Buchardt. You can almost say that with certainty because they have similar sound signature. And is it an upgrade? Yes, it's an upgrade. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like the blind A/B test was fun, but they're very time consuming as well. Now we might do a blind A/B, and he's already like, oh shit. We might do another blind A/B with multiple different other things on this channel, obviously. We've done before with the Sonos Faber Electamotor 3s and the CSS Audio. We might do one with the Buchardt S400 MKII and the Sonos Faber Electamotor 3, or something a little bit different this time, right? Because this was really close. Let's try something that is drastically different and see which one we actually prefer. That'll be fun, right?
Sounds good.
So yeah, so that's pretty much it for me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. So I posted on my community page that I might be doing this video, so I asked if you guys had any questions, and here are some of the questions that I will answer in real time. Dan Hertzler, I apologize, I'm butchering the names. I'm guessing one of the reasons for the revisit is the hubbub caused by your former associates at Audio Excellence. I would be interested to know if you hear any of the things Adrian and Philip heard, particularly the low image height. Okay, we'll stop right there. Sean, did you hear any low image height or any problem in imaging or sound staging?
On the Buchards, absolutely not. I felt like the imaging was pinpoint.
I honestly find them extremely coherent. Again, nothing against Audio Excellence, but again, I didn't hear any of the stuff that they were hearing. And I believe one of the guy, Lewis, he's a good friend of mine. He heard that he was saying that there was like no mid-range. I have to disagree on that one. Sean's laughing. Having worked with them, you know more than anyone their preferences. I have no doubt that their reactions were sincere, so I'd be interested in your personal interpretation of why they might have such a different take on this speaker. And lastly, I would be interested to hear your thoughts comparing the Buchardt to similarly priced bookshelf speakers. Well, similar. Okay, 1 second. I see you have a Paradigm, can't remember the model, but I believe those are 2,400 USD. I'm not sure what else you have on hand to compare, but I think that will be really useful information, at least for me. Awesome, and thank you for the comment. So to answer your second question, I really have no clue as to why their findings were so drastically different. And that's why one of the reasons I did a revisit, as you said, because I was doubting myself. I'm like, did I overhype it? Because when I heard it, me, Tujin, everyone that heard it in my space absolutely loved it. But did I overhype it? All five guys over there didn't like it. I know their preferences, but I don't quite understand why they didn't like it. Maybe it's the setup, maybe it's the speakers. I don't know. That's a real good question that I really can't answer, and I can only make assumptions. I don't want to do that. So some comparisons with similar price speakers. Well, there are, I guess, the CSS Audio is not really a similar price speaker, but I think it performs similarly, if not to a little bit of a higher degree on certain tracks. What other similar price speakers? I wish you would be more specific. The Paradigm speakers, I haven't done a full review on yet, so come back to that and in that comment there. But I can tell you that overall, I still prefer the Buchardt over the Paradigm, in terms of musicality and my personal preference. But the paradigms do things that Buchards don't, and most speakers don't. So stay tuned for that review. Next question by JK. I hope you're not joking. That's a joke. I was thinking about getting these with a Hagel, but Mass mentioned this isn't a good pairing. What amps do you think gets the best out of the S400s? Okay, so very good question. So actually, Audio Excellence used Hagel H120 for their testing, if I remember correctly. And yes, Hagel is not the best choice possible. It's not the worst choice, but it's not really recommended. And that's because the Hagel sounds a little bit, they're smooth sounding. They're both smooth sounding. And if you watch and go back to my Buchardt S400 or one of the DAC comparisons that we did blind, the Buchardt S400 Mark II sounded too smooth with some of the smooth sounding gear like the Kisune DAC that we had. So it was only when we went to gears that were more refined, more reference sounding, that they started to bloom. Now, I think in my personal preference, I think the Danafrips Thalo and the Hades, those are great combinations. The Hades preamplifier complements the Thalo very well. That's what we use for the blind AAB because that's what we know sounds good with it. And that's, again, it sounds good with Elac and Buchardt equally, and also the Kalish Model 5. Really good combination. It's really hard to go wrong with that combination because it's really balanced. High frequency is extended and the bass is grippy. I just absolutely love it. And in my original review, I recommended the Thalo for the Buchardt S400 Mark II as well. So other choices, Kinky Studio, Name. There's a lot out there that you can choose from. I think Buchardt likes Name with it. Okay, next question. I'm curious about how you think they stack up against the KEF R3. Thank you for being specific. I know you have heard the R3 in the past and they were pretty comparable price in Canada. Okay, so the KEF R3, I like the Buchardt S400 Mark IIs much better. And that's a personal thing, but also the KEF R3, to me, it sounds great with Hagel, but with virtually anything else, I am not a huge fan of that sound when it comes to KEF sound. I think the LS50 Meta is where it's at, and anything you go up there, you become to a little bit, I'm not gonna smooth code it. It sounds a little bit disjointed to me in comparison, but when Hagel comes to play, those are really good matchings. The KEF really comes to life, really blends well. Yeah, so that's why they use it at shows and stuff as well. Overall, I think the Buchardt extends lower for a bookshelf and has better extension, better refinement, better sound staging. Imaging, I think the KEF R3 may win, but by a slight margin. Okay, next question. Hi, please discuss amp pairings. Mine really came alive, paired with Outlaw Audio monoblocks, $800 for the pair. Again, I believe you. That's actually a really good price. Now, I haven't heard it exactly with those monoblocks, but again, we've talked about this. We'll move on. Next, I prioritize tonality above all. I'm curious how you rate these speakers in that category. Secondly, do they sound cohesive in near field, say 6 feet or 2 meters away? I know they're not designed for near field, so I want to make sure they sound cohesive at my listening distance. Okay, so this is one of the things that I have to bring up again, audio excellence. Swear to God, I'm not trying to make this a drama or anything, but audio excellence, listen to it at near field distance. That room is pretty small, the distance from the speakers are pretty close. And you're right, they're not made for near field distance listening. And that's one of the assumptions I made, as to why they may have such a different impression. At near field distance, these speakers don't do very well. Because first of all, to hear low frequency bass, you are supposed to be a little bit farther away. This is true for Magnepans and every other speakers out there. And so if you're listening at near field distance, then mostly what you will be hearing is mid bass. They are cohesive even at around 2 meters away, but I also find that the further you move away from the speakers and give more room for the speakers to breathe, the better they will perform and give you more. Again, tonality is great, as we spoke about, so I'll move on from that. I think you got the gist of how much I love the tonality on these speakers from my main review and as well as this video. So enough on that. Will these do sound justice in a 13 by 25 room with or without a subwoofer, or do I need real floor standards for that? How smooth was the tweeter at all volumes? Can the speakers play well at lower 70 dB levels? Okay, so truth be told, with all Buchardt speakers or any speakers that has bass, you need to crank it up a little bit. So we're talking about, our listening level was about 76 dB, right, which is about normal hearing level or music level. If you're listening to speakers at low levels, you definitely want a subwoofer, right, so that you can fine tune things, because the way the speakers roll off, right, they roll off. So when people say there's no sub bass, they don't actually mean no sub bass, meaning there has to be some sub bass or the speakers sound broken. There's no such a thing as no sub bass. It's just that it's at very low levels. So technically all speakers can have good sub bass if you just bring it up, by cranking up the volume. Now these speakers have very good sub bass. So they are better than other speakers at the bass and the lower level listening level. But again, the smoothness on the Buchardt at lower levels may sound a little bit muted to some people who like a little bit of snappiness on the top end. Now that goes away if you play a little bit of higher levels, but lower than 70 dB, I would say you want to have something that is a little bit more exaggerated on the high frequency for that, if you like high frequency. Next, Sean B. If you could compare your findings with Audio Excellence findings, their room and their associated equipment. Again, we went over that. I can only make assumptions, and it could be their room, like I said, near field listening. It could be their amplifier pairing. It could be all of those things. I can't really say too much unless I've actually been there and done that, right? So, anyways, next, crank the tunes. Is there any integrated amplifier under 3,000 Canadian that really make these speakers sing? I believe Othello is under 3,000 Canadian. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you can get the Othello, I think that's a really good pairing. I'll just leave it at that. Other pairings, name, a gentleman here said Outlaw, all good pairings, I guess. Next, Hector. Hi Jay, could you compare the Buchardt S400 Mark II to the Tecton Low reference? Wow. That's a tough one. Now, the Tecton Low reference is a great speaker. It's about $1,000. I would say the S400 Mark II is much more refined. I think the Tecton Low reference is a bit more snappier on the top frequency, a little bit more high frequency. So like the gentleman that was asking, for a speaker at low listening levels, the Tecton Low reference would be a better choice. Again, depending on the application, the needs change, and so does the speaker requirement. So I'll just keep it at that. The Buchardt S400 Mark II, in terms of technical capabilities, again, sound staging, imaging, all that stuff is technically better. It's a better speaker. Okay, next question. Hello Jay, I'm interested in one placement to matching any sub. I have these Mark II plus KC62 and matching is not that simple. Mark II go low relatively, and I feel like sub needs to be mechanically big to perform a lower assistance. Okay, so number one, placement wise, these like to be closer to the wall, and I think that's one of the few times I ever said that about a speaker. These like to be closer to the wall behind it. Now in this room, I had it about 1 feet away from the wall. Okay, that's quite, for this blind AEB, we had it 1 foot away from the wall. So, and in terms of placement, play around with, toe in and stuff like that, but you want to have about 1-2 feet from the wall behind it. And then, again, play around with those placement. Each room is different, so I can't speak for every room, but I can tell you the general guideline based on my experience. Number 2, matching any sub. Now, I see why you have trouble matching the KC62 with the Mark II, but at the same time, I don't, because they exhibit similar behaviors, meaning the KC62 extends low and linear, where rel is a little bit more like mid-bass emphasis, adding in smooth musicality and all that stuff. So in terms of technical capability, the KC62 is a better subwoofer, technically speaking. And it should match very well with the Buchardt. But if you feel like you're missing out on bass, then I will suggest the higher up KEF subwoofer. I believe it's called like KF92. I have one right here, right beside me. And that would have you covered. But again, play around with placement of your subwoofers and play around with your room a little bit, because that could be a bigger factor, that the subwoofers are not really working with your room as much it is, and much less of that the subwoofer is not working with the speakers. Next, I'm curious if the Signature series is with the extra dollar. I'm assuming if you're asking is worth the extra dollar. I'm not sure. The Signature series for the Mark II, I'm assuming is what you're asking. I'm not sure because I don't have the Signature series. This is the original normal series. Next question. Elac Unifi UBR62. I think it will be a great comparison, especially considering it's almost half the price. Thanks, homie. Love the videos. You're the reason I picked up the Triangle BRO2s. Love the speakers. Christopher, you're spot on. That's why we did this video. Great comparison. I agree. Next question. I'd be curious how they compare to the Elac UBR62, and even though they're at different price class. No, that's why we did it. Next question. I guess any differences from Audio Excellence Canada? It's every comment about Audio Excellence Canada here's in the speakers. How does the S400 pair with tubes? Okay, first of all, right off the bat, S400 tubes, not my fan. I don't go for tubes with the S400. S400 needs transistor amps. As far as I'm concerned, it needs transistor amps. I'm a tube guy. I love tube amplifiers, but not with the S400. Why? Because it needs power. Some speakers, you just can't match tubes. Unless you have like really expensive tube monoblocks, that's an entirely different story, right? How does it compare to similar price items like Sonos Faber Sonetto 2s? Those would be my question. Now, if you know anything about me, I'm not a big fan of the Sonetto series from Sonos Faber. I like the Heritage series, like the Elac Tamotor 3, or even the Olympica series, but I'm not a huge fan of the Sonetto 2s because the Sonetto series have a mid-bass boost to exaggerate that mid-bass so that it seems like there's a lot of bass, but it doesn't actually extend down low like the Buchardt S400 Mark II, at least in my opinion. That's why the mid-bass initially is very impressive. Initially you're like, wow, all that bass. But then eventually you become sick of it. If there's too much mid-bass, too much energy there, it muddies the vocals at times and you become a little bit sick to your stomach. At least that's how I felt about it when I listened to it for too long. Beautiful tone though. I like the tone, okay? It's only personal thing. I own the Buchardt S400 Mark II. Very happy with them. I'd like to upgrade my amp though. I'd like to addition a few amps in a shop. Obviously they don't have Bucardts. Which speakers should I partner with the amps I want to try, which are relatively close to the Bucardts? Obviously it's not optimal, but taking amps home and trying them in my house is not an option, unfortunately. Well, that's what we're here for. Again, I will suggest a Thalo, Kinky Studio. Again, name. Suggesting the same things over and over again because those questions are similar. Please compare them to the K-Lich Model 5. I haven't found that comparison anywhere. Aha. That's a good question. K-Lich Model 5, actually I compared it to the Buchardt S400 Mark II, so shame on you for not watching. But it was part of a video, so let me just recap here. So Model 5, musically speaking, I prefer it. And that's why I gave it the product of the year over the Buchardt S400 Mark II, even though the Buchardt Mark II S400 Mark II technically performs better. Meaning, it's just like the Elacs, for example. I'm not saying the Model 5s are like Elacs. I'm saying it's just hypothetically speaking, it's like how I liked the Elac on the Sarah K track versus the Buchardt. Musically speaking, I prefer the Model 5 based on the tracks I play, based on the musical, tone and stuff like that. But technically speaking, like sound staging, imaging, smoothness, refinement, and all that kind of stuff, technically the Buchardt is a better speaker. Have you heard the original S400 Special Edition? I have. I would love to hear a comparison of the new Mark II against the SC version. Well, the Special Edition version, again, you have to understand, is the upgrade in crossover components, and I believe it was the cabinet material as well. Now, you have to also understand that the overall sound signature of the speakers don't change, right? The refinement level may change, but I have to say that the Mark II has better components than even the SC version of the S400, technically speaking. So refinement level, Mark II is better, extends lower, and if you want the full comparison or more comparison, then go watch my Mark II video because I talk about the original S400 and the differences with the Mark II there. I'll link it in the description for you. Could you address what Audio Excellence Canada said in their negative review? I trust your reviews a lot based on my own experience, but kind of lost confidence after not quite impressed by the CSS Audio 1TDX. Probably due to my taste though. I like Thomas and experienced tons of connections issues with ZenStream, very common among customers, and wish you weren't people in your video. Okay, first of all, I want to address the 1TDX. Again, same story goes. It's not going to be a speaker for everyone, but this is the first time I've heard someone say they didn't like the 1TDX. Quite shocked by that. I don't know. But if you don't like the 1TDX, then you certainly wouldn't like the Buchardt S400 Mark II or the Elacs, in my opinion. In terms of the ZenStream, well, again, mine connects flawlessly. So I wouldn't know. But if you check the comment section, you're right. A lot of people do have connection issues. And I can only test what I get. So mine works flawlessly. So that's what I report. That, with that, if I experienced any issues, I would. But again, I can't speak for everyone or everyone's experiences or have collective data of every customer, right? So I hope I have your understanding on that one. Any streaming amps these speakers sound good with? NAD M10 version 2. Have one right there. Sounds good. Oh, another amplifier that may work well is Audiophile. Audiophile IN200 should sound very good with these. The S400 Mark IIs. I didn't find these speakers cohesive at all. The mid-range lacked detail and was very disconnect from the highs and lows. I returned mine. Might be the most overhyped speaker. That's quite interesting. That is like the almost exact same thing Audio Excellence said. Now, I wonder if this is like a problem with quality control. Like, are some people getting not the exact tuning by accident? I mean, it makes sense. They're shipping out thousands of these speakers, then 2% would be 200 people, and that would be 200 angry people that didn't like the speakers. But again, they do have good return policy, and I'm sure if you email them, they'll work something out and see if you have a dud. But yeah, no, I personally didn't hear any of the things that you heard. Mid-range lacked detail. I can kind of see that. If you don't like smooth, if you like more edge, then you would like the Elacs better. Even the Elacs better because they're more edged. But again, refinement is the smoothness across the frequency. So yeah, I don't hear the things that you do here, unfortunately. Is there any chance you could do a comparison with the Polk R700? R700, man, is a floor standard. It's just a more full sound. It's different. You're comparing apples to oranges. This is a bookshelf speaker. Bookshelf speakers do things floor standards don't, and vice versa. So there's no, you have to compare every single element. There's no comparison. Overall, the Buchardt S400 Mark II is a better speaker, but I say that based on refinement level, like the audiophile qualities. But if you like a more full range sound, the Buchardt Reserve R700 has more scale, has more bass. Again, it's very hard comparison there. Have to go on for hours. Please compare to the Buchardt 200. Great question. Now, the Buchardt 200 is a great speaker. Now, that's a comparison that I may save for another day because we haven't done any official testing back and forth. But I would say overall, again, refinement level, better on the Buchards. And, but the bass, the texture is quite similar. I would say the Buchardt S400 MKII extends lower, has more meatiness to it. So overall, I would say the sound staging, imaging, and all that is better on the Buchardt as well. So again, but R200 is a very inexpensive speaker. That's like less than, I believe it's like about less than a half the price of the Buchardt, just like the Elacs. Very good contender. Okay, so I can't read all these comments, but we'll make this the last one. I want to see Buchardt S300 versus S400 to see what the extra $1,000 gets you. Well, I have a video on that. I'll link it down below. So thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed all the answering of the questions, then please give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe and look out for that community post because I do post there, and I will link that in the description as well. Check there once in a while because I post pictures and also ask you guys if you have any questions before the review so I can answer them in the actual review. All right, thanks very much, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.